First guest tonight played basketball at BYU between 1989 and 1995 with a 2-year church mission in between. Also the longtime analyst for BYU Basketball on BYU Radio, a published author. Congratulations. A pleasure to welcome Mark Durrant to the Wise Guys. How many consecutive double-doubles did you have in your career? And we're not talking about In-N-Out Burger after the game.
Yeah. Is 0 a consecutive? I don't think I ever had a
double-double.
Come on. You were always
I had
up
one
there.
in and out. That was it. I've had a lot of consecutive in and out.
There were games when Mark was playing where I was like, is he going to get every rebound in this game? Like, I think he's going to get every rebound.
See, that's the great thing is everybody remembers me, but they also remember Devin, and they kind of mix us together. They mix the
scoring, and
I'm a much better player than because of Devin. They think I'm Devin.
You averaged 10 points. 7.6 rebounds. That's close to a double-double right there.
Yeah.
So you're saying
you almost averaged a double-double.
In all those 128 games against BYU, you didn't have a double-double?
Because you can't even remember what game James Lark played in. So I don't know if we can trust you.
Listen, I'm fuzzy on the Lark games.
Hey, man, this is awesome. This is cool, man. Dave and
we're just glad to have you.
Blaine, man, I love you guys. I love you guys.
All three of us will be on that basketball call Thursday night.
Yeah.
We'll be on TV. Mark will be on
TV
radio.
TV is easy, man. TV is such an easy job.
And then
you guys just talk about whatever.
Because here's the thing. Here's what you need to know about radio. And because we've all done some radio too. The thing I like about radio is you can kind of lose track of stuff, but it doesn't really matter because nobody can see it. So you can make up crap all that you want, and nobody knows that you're making it up. TV, like you kind of lose track, you lose focus, and you say something, and like 9 people tweet, "Is Blaine an idiot? Like, is he not watching the same game I'm watching?"
Who do you think? Who do you think gets more words in per broadcast? You or me?
That would be interesting to see Greg and Blaine do a broadcast because there wouldn't be enough airtime for both of them.
The words would exceed the action.
Hey, we had Greg. You and I had Greg on the show the other day.
Yeah, on
Sports Nation. And it actually was fine.
It was senior day. We went to Golden Corral afterwards.
Yes, we did.
For lunch.
Yeesh, you guys are old, man.
So, come on. You had some double-doubles. You had to have some double-doubles.
This is not a modesty type show. This is the Wise Guys.
We're going to toot your horn.
Listen,
you
had some good games.
I want to tell you and everyone out there, I was the best average player to ever play at BYU. I mean, I was so good at being very average. I mean, listen, I was never much of a scorer. I had a couple 20-point games. It was rare. I was a defensive rebounding role play, get the ball to Larson guy, set a screen for Larson, get him the rock. That was my job.
And if somebody knocked down a small guard, Mark's job was to chest him up.
That's right.
And challenge him. He was like an enforcer out there.
You tweeted recently, and I quote, I would have made a ton of money if we had NIL back in my day and if I was a much better player.
And if I had a better personality and better looks.
So forecast what the NIL is going to do to college basketball.
Oh, man. I don't think it's going to do much. Here's my philosophy on that, Dave.
Okay.
You always had the best players going to the big schools, right? And they were probably giving them money anyway. And so they were going to get who they were going to get, and BYU is going to get who they could get.
Yeah.
Now those schools can pay more than BYU, so they'll still get those best players because they're paying for them, and BYU will get who they can afford, which is the same players that they otherwise could have gotten. So I don't think it'll make much of a difference except for the lives of the players. I mean, that's a pretty sweet deal when you're bringing in some of that money. I don't really have a grasp on how much money it is. I hear these crazy numbers for big-time players. You know, what would have been for a guy like me, you know, the 7-point-a-game night? Would I get any money? Would I get a couple $100 maybe? I don't know what they're paying guys.
You might get promised some money because they can promise everything, and since it's not going through the university, do they have to pay?
And that's the issue you have with it right now is players, and it's way more crazy in football than basketball right now because basketball you still only have a 13 or 15 man roster, you know, depending on where you're at.
And we're right in the middle of the end of football season.
There's only so many guys. Football, they stockpile guys, right? And it's 130 guys. And you have, we were listening to, Dave and I were listening to a Washington State's coach last night just rant about coaches from other teams have contacted his players directly who were not in the portal, offering him NIL deals and telling him to get in the portal so he could get them there and pay them, which which Washington State's coach said it's not right, which it isn't. I actually believe that's an NCAA violation, but there's just no rules on this thing. So maybe in basketball it doesn't affect it as much because there's so many limited slots. But what about football?
Well, I mean, I think it does some good things. I mean, obviously the walk-ons getting scholarships, that was a big deal. And so, yeah, I mean, it's certainly hard to say how that's going to end up affecting things. I think maybe, you're talking about Jaron Hall. Used to be a couple years ago, man, he's just going to go, right? And now maybe he's thinking, well, if I stay,
it's a business decision.
It's a business decision for him. So maybe you see guys that otherwise would have left that will stay because they're making enough money.
Yeah.
And it's uncertain where you'll be drafted, how much you'll make. You've got this certainty to a degree if you stay and you're getting something. And so it's not like you're just spinning your wheels another year of college football. You can actually make some money, maybe improve your stock and get more money on the back. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. I think that, I don't think we'd be talking about Jaron considering staying if it weren't for the NIL bit.
So now back to basketball and that then. In past years, especially BYU, has had some guys leave early and go play in Europe. And if somehow BYU's NIL group can say, hey, listen, you're going to go make X in Europe, you stay here for your senior season, because we can pay you almost that and you don't have to go live in another country. Is there a chance that BYU keeps a few more of those guys for an extra year?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I never played in Europe. I had some buddies who did. And there's this allure of, I got to get out of college and start living my life and see the world. It's cool, but it's a tough life. And it's certainly better now than, obviously, when my brother played over there. I mean, the leagues are better. The money's guaranteed. It's better. But it's a tough life, And so I think if guys realize how good they had it in college just to begin with, without all the NIL stuff, that's a great time of life, man.
I know.
I look back at those years, man, that was a good time. We had some great times back there, didn't we, Blaine?
Oh, yeah. And you know what? Brian Keel and Dave Nixon both have said that they would give up, now in hindsight, they would give up a year in the NFL, and they both played for a number of years in the NFL, for another year in college. And they didn't go out early, and they were just saying, You get to professional level, it's not the same. It's not the fun time with your buddies going out and winning games for your university and having that fun in those relationships. Guys show up for work, they do their job, they go home. It's just not the same thing. And they both said to us, and that's easy for me to say. I didn't play a bunch of years in the NFL. They played in the NFL and said, I'd give up a year to come back and play one more year of college. That's great hindsight. But these 21-year-olds and 22-year-olds for some reason don't get it, right?
They just want to go. They want to move on with life and say, don't be so eager to move on with life because, man, you got it pretty nice.
I remember working the UNLV games in Vegas, and everyone on the bench, everyone on the Rebel team thought they were going to the show. And I'm just like, guys, none of you are going to the show. It's not just him or him or him. None of you are going to the show, but that's all they could think about was, why do I need to go to class? I'm going to the show. And it was like, why don't you try to get in the game first? And then take it from there. You mentioned your brother Devin a moment ago, and he provided us some questions for this interview.
Here we go.
Much in the same way that you did for his interview a few months ago.
I don't recall that.
Devin asks, will you please tweet more often than you do? I love your wit and wisdom, and I want more.
He's the only one, I think, that's begging for more tweets from me. Listen, Twitter's super fun, right? I remember however long, 10 years ago, Twitter was a thing. Greg's on Twitter. Greg Rebell, he's like, you got to get on Twitter. I'm like, I don't want to get on Twitter. It sounds stupid. He's like, I'll get on Twitter. And then I get on, and he's like, Mark's on Twitter, follow him. And immediately I've got 500 followers because Greg's got the powerful Twitter account. And so now I thought, man, I guess I got to tweet something because I got all these followers. And I've never looked back. And listen, I'm a clown on Twitter for the most part. It's fun. It's a creative outlet. I love it. I just try and tweet things that I think are funny. I don't know if anyone else, and if they do, that's fine. But it's been fun. It's a nice creative outlet. And
if you don't amuse, first amuse yourself. Isn't that the rule of life, right? Yeah. So, but Dave is my witness. How many times on this show have I said, if you don't follow Mark Durrant on Twitter, you need to follow Mark Durrant on Twitter? I've said it multiple times because I get a laugh every time you tweets something, I read it to Brenda, and Brenda's like, I know, I follow him now because you told me to. And so she's like, and yes, it's funny. So, and the thing about Mark's humor is it's a little deeper. Like sometimes you read it and you're like,
it's at levels.
Wait a minute. Then you go, oh, like it has like an aha, like the light bulb goes on. You go, now that's really funny because I had to think about it. Now that's really funny. So yes, if you're gonna follow anybody on Twitter,
all right, Devin, I will try. Devin,
just
for
there
you.
Go. So this transfer portal is another game changer. Going to continue to be, especially as BYU moves on to the Big 12. As with the NIL, what do you think the portal's long-term effects are going to be on the game? For good and for bad?
Well, I guess because I'm an old fogey and a traditionalist, I'd say for bad, just because you lose some continuity, you lose some connection with the fans. You lose. I mean, I go back to when I played, and there just wasn't a lot of thought of transferring because there was a penalty if you wanted to do that.
You had to sit out a year.
Had to sit out a year, and so we're talking about this on the way over. I mean, coaches have to be a lot nicer than they used to be because if a player doesn't like it, he's gone. And we used to just get yelled at out of love, I'm sure, the coaches yelling at us.
You're saying Roger Reed yelled at you?
Roger Reed would yell at us like you would not believe. And I love Roger is my favorite human on the planet and just the best guy. But that's how he was kind of, you had the Bobby Knights and all those guys out at the time. Right. And that was just how you coached. Rick Majerus, that's how you coached. And that's how you motivated your players. And Roger used to say, hey, listen, if I'm yelling at you, it's because I love you. When you need to start worrying is when I stop yelling at you, because then I don't care. And so that's kind of the mindset we had. Anyway, now it's just about if I'm not happy, I'm going to go somewhere else where I'm happy. If I'm not playing as much or the role that I want, I'm going to go find somewhere that I can. And that's good. That's fine. But I think there's some value in having some adversity, meeting that, and overcoming that where you're at.
Yeah.
And like I said, again, I mean, I think it's bad for the fans because every year there's like 10 new guys that you have never seen before, rather than here's this guy that came in as a freshman. I've watched him for 6 or 7 years.
Like a Jimmer.
Yeah, like a Jimmer. And it's just, I mean, that's so cool. You get this investment in these guys. That's not to say you can't grow to love, Rudy and Jackson and those guys, Noah. But it's just different every year, so much turnover, and I think it hurts just the average fan who likes to have some familiarity and really gets invested in players.
How difficult? It's a completely different job for a head coach now with this, because in the past, there's all of these factors, but in the past, you'd get guys and you could almost say, well, what are you going to do? Go sit out a year? Because I know you're not, right? But now, not only are you trying to find talent coming out of high school, but you're also looking to the portal to see if you can add talent to your team. But at the same time, you better be recruiting your own team because you can lose those guys. And you, even though you don't directly oversee it, you better have an understanding of NIL and how that works, or you're going to lose guys for that reason. How are coaches equipped to deal with that much?
It's a real challenge. You think about, I've got this kid that I like. I worked so hard to bring him in as a freshman. Now, he better play as a freshman, or he's going to say, I'm going somewhere where I can play. So you have pressure. Now, it used to be maybe you work yourself a couple minutes as a freshman, a little more as a sophomore. Even Jimmer, you're talking about Jimmer, he didn't play a lot as a freshman.
Right.
And now it's like I should be starting as a freshman, or you get 100 voices in your head saying they're not using you right. You need to go somewhere where you need to be treated better, and there's no penalty for it, right? Because you just go find somewhere else, then you're off to the next place. You're not sitting out doing anything, and so it's a challenge. So you got to play those guys. You got to keep them happy. But as they say, the transfer portal taketh and it giveth. You get some really good guys in like Alex Barcelo and. Go down the list just the past few years under Pope. He's built a lot of the success off the transfers. So it's certainly a new challenge for coaches, and I think the coaches that can best navigate all of that will be the most successful.
Yeah, it's a totally big headache, new one. I think the solution is to put the 1-year penalty back in and I think it would calm everything down, even on the football side, is if you're going to transfer, you got to sit out a year. So then you really, really got to decide if you want to go. But if you can transfer up from BYU this week and start in September for your new team, or actually be in spring drills, and then as if you were there the whole time, that's just too alluring.
Here's the thing I think has to happen, to be fair, though, right? And I'm interested to hear your take on this. If we're going to do that to the athletes, then coaches also, if they're still under contract and leave, should have to sit out a year before they can coach.
Yeah, coaches have been skating on this for a long time, man. They get all so offended when guys leave. Oh, how could they do this? How disloyal to the program. I remember Matt Harms a couple years ago. Was it Purdue? I think he came from. And the coach was just furious. And, you know, I don't know what all went behind the scenes. There's some kind of deal with the visa. And, I'm not – anyway, it was a real struggle to get Matt here because the coach was so offended. But, man, those coaches, man, they get a better deal themselves. It's not disloyal. It's like it's a business decision. I got to take care of myself and my family. I'm going to go get this next job. And so listen, I'd be happy with that. But once you let the cat out of the bag for coaches or players, it's hard to go back. It would be hard to re-implement a year ban. I mean, it's just, I don't see it happening.
Jackson Robinson is exactly what Mark was talking about. So Jackson's a really, really high level recruit coming out. He's at Arkansas. They're an Elite 8 team. So
and he was at A&M before that.
But he hardly played. Well, of course he hardly played. He's a young player, and they're an Elite 8 team. So now BYU gets him, and he's got immediate playing time. And
he's starting for BYU because we're not an Elite 8 team.
Right, we're not an Elite 8 team or anywhere close to that. And so somehow, we do benefit from some of these.
The problem I have is not just the players leaving and all. I don't like it when, and I'm not going to name any names, and I don't get too worked up about it anyway, but if you're getting the time, if you're a star, if you're a captain, you're playing, why are you leaving? How much better can it be somewhere else? It's not like BYU doesn't get guys drafted, or if you can have success here. I mean, I can see one thing if you're not playing and you're disgruntled, but if you're a star and a captain, what are you doing? Why not stick around? What's your complaint? No, I can't.
Well, Keenan Peely is a captain.
I would never mention that
gone into the portal, but we're not mentioning his name. But that certainly applies.
Yeah, exactly right.
Certainly applies. Former BYU basketball star and basketball analyst Mark Durrant is on the Wise Guys. We call Devin a basketball star too, so we're going to just go with the theme there.
He is a basketball star.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mark was a starter and big-time part of the team. He's a basketball star.
So what's your take on this year's team? 6-5 now, 2 losses against South Dakota and Utah Valley, and then a pair of neutral floor wins against Dayton and number 21 Creighton. And I don't care that Creighton's big man was out. They're still a pretty good team, although they're on the skids as of late. And you got a bunch of newcomers, a handful of return missionaries. What do you like about this group?
Well, it's a little bit of a hot mess, right? I mean, it's crazy because they beat Creighton. They play at San Diego State really well. Then they drop bad games to South Dakota, and Utah Valley barely beat Idaho State. So it's like I don't know what we're gonna get when we show up to a game. I think there's a lot of because they have so many different guys. And, it's hard to find the chemistry right off. It's hard for a coach to know what player can I rely on? What player can I count on to do this and do it consistently? Consistency has been a real problem for this team. And, back when I played, again, back in the day, and the good teams I've seen at BYU, the formula was you have some older guys, and you knew, like for me, Russ Larson, 20 points a night, no question. Ken Roberts, at least 15 a night. Randy Reed going to get 10 a night. So that's 45 points that there was no question in my mind where those 45 points was going to come from. And then the rest of us just kind of filled in, but there wasn't a lot of pressure on a guy like me because those guys were going to get their points. And this team, it's like, who knows where you're going to get your points from? Maybe it's Rudy. Rudy had a nice game the other night. Spencer's been out. Atiki or Foose. Probably is a guy that maybe you can count on for 15, maybe. So it's hard. So there's a lot of guys going, figuring out their roles, chemistry. But what I really liked about the Creighton, I can forgive almost everything, Dave, if you're playing hard. Right. And they played so hard against Creighton. and they dominated the boards, dominated the offensive glass. Those are the kind of things that endear me to teams. And if they can continue that, win or lose going forward, that'll help me out. And I think they'll win a lot if they play that hard.
People have asked me, and my answer has been, I don't know the answer. So now I'm going to ask you about.
Blaine doesn't know the answer?
I'm like, hey, I've been doing this 34 years, and that one I cannot answer. And they say, how can a team go out one night and make 19 threes, and then that same team show up a few nights later in the same building and really not get guarded any different? Like, these were not like, oh, well, because the other night nobody guarded them and they guarded them this time, and miss almost every three-point shot they took, whether it was open or not open. The only thing I've said to him, there's a lot of mental games going on with this team right now, hesitation, that kind of stuff. But I'm really interested in your take on that, because that's a tough one to answer. How do you make 19 one night and the exact same guys on the same floor, not guarded differently, not make anything?
Yeah, Blaine, that's the story of my life, man. Isn't that how life is? Sometimes in life you're making all your threes, and sometimes you just can't buy a bucket, man.
I've never had a time in my life where I'm making all the threes.
Well, yeah, obviously not you, but Blaine and I. Listen, it's hard to kind of square in your mind that, other than, I go back to that natural scene where the guy's like, losing as a disease, as contagious as the plague. You just keep saying that over and over, and shooting is a little bit contagious as well. I mean, if you go out there, and you've seen it against BYU too, you make your first couple threes, you're like, this is our night, man. We got to go in tonight. And if you miss a couple and you get down by 10, you're like, oh, man, we got to make this next one. This was important for me to make.
Someone's got to make something.
And you're really just pushing it, then it can go badly really quickly. I think this team is somewhere in the middle. I mean, I don't think they're a great team, but I think they're better than they've shown the last couple of games. I think it'll help when Spencer's back. He's more consistent. Trevin, if he comes back, which I think he will pretty soon, is a good three-point shooter. I think they've got guys that certainly can get hot and shoot it well. But right now it's a little bit, they're kind of riding the winds of how we're feeling, and you can't do that and have really consistent success, obviously. So you need to find some guys that are, you're not going to shoot 10% one game and 40% the next game, but they shoot 35% every game. That's what you're going to get from me, and they don't have that right now.
And I agree with Mark 100% on what I saw against Creighton was a team that got every 50-50 ball. And I'm like, you know what? You don't have to shoot it great and play like that, and you're going to win a bunch of games. And so maybe that's the formula for this team until they get more comfortable with who's supposed to take the shot and win.
How maddening was that last 3 minutes?
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, it was. I watched on TV,
gracious.
and we just wanted to. I don't know what we wanted to do, but it wasn't good.
I took my blood pressure, and it was 160 over 120 at the end of that game.
You had to witness it in person.
That was as bad as I've seen. And I didn't want to, on the radio, you want to accurately portray what's going on, but you don't want to beat kids up. I mean, it's not like they're trying to turn it over, and you don't want to be too critical. But it was bad. It was super bad. As bad as I've ever seen. I mean, a lot of times you'll see pressure, and teams will struggle, and they'll have a turnover or two. But you had 3 minutes and about 6 possessions where they couldn't even get it in bounds or get it past half court. And they had been played so well up to that point. It is hard. I mean, they'd never been in that situation really. They've been kind of the comebackers and have used that same formula that Creighton did to get back in games, create turnovers. And so I think they were not used to it. You had a lot of inexperienced guys handling the ball because some guys had foul trouble. And it's just, no matter how much you practice that, Dave, in practice, it's not the same.
No.
And for one, the athletes were better that for Creighton brought to you and quicker and faster. So it's like a shock to your system what's happening. And so sometimes we used to, when we're working on our press break, have the defense had 7 guys just to try and estimate that type of pressure so you're used to it. But it totally overwhelmed them. But credit the team for not just folding completely and finding a way to win. I mean, after that, suffering through that, to come and win, that was pretty cool.
And let's talk about that win. So Dallin Hall hits the game winner. And I loved that he didn't actually make the shot, but he didn't panic, and he just followed up his own shot. So he made the second shot, which was remarkable, that he had the poise to stay with it. It looks like He's got a chance to develop into a really, really good player for BYU as they move into the Big 12. It's important for him to be good, maybe even more important when Colin Chandler comes and plays the 2 when they're in the Big 12. What do you like about Hall? What do you think about his future?
Well, again, I'm able to forgive, some of his inexperience and turnovers because of the way he plays hard. He plays with confidence. He's not afraid. I mean, all he does is hit game-winning shots, right?
Right.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. And he wasn't afraid to take the shot. And a lot of times you'll see those last-second shots, the first shot doesn't go in. It's the tip-in that goes in and out and down, stuck with it. He's a great kid, love his family. I just love that he's just a hard nose. He kind of reminds me a little Nate Call when he played. Just a tough kid that's going to win games. He's a winner. And, I think he's going to be super going forward. What you'll see is his shot get more confident, his turnovers going down, his decision-making a little better. And once he kind of goes through that, he's going to be super.
Yeah, I think you're right. Mark Durrant's with us on the Wise Guys. He played in 128 games at BYU, 53 starts, averaged 10 points, and 7.6 rebounds. Your teams went 53-6 at the Marriott Center, reached the big dance in 3 of your 4 seasons. What was so special about that group?
Oh man, that was fun. My freshman year was Roger's first year. We talked about Roger, and Mike Smith he was gone, and so we were picked to finish last in the conference. But we had Marty and Andy Toulson and Kevin Santiago, Mark Hess, a bunch of guys, Todd Crow, Steve Schreiner. And so it was fun because there was no expectations. Yeah. And we ended up winning the conference, going to the tournament, lost on a heartbreaker to Clemson in the tournament. So that was super fun to play with Marty and Andy and those guys and have my introduction to college basketball. And then when I came back, we had guys like Trost and Sanderson and Kevin Nixon and Jared Miller. And that was probably our best team the year we came back. We won the first game in the tournament, barely lost to Kansas in the second. I wish we could have got that Kansas game somehow. And then my last couple of years with Russell and Ken and the Reed brothers, and it was just, those are my best friends now. Yeah. That's the cool thing about sports. This is probably true for you, that your best friends, my best friends are the guys that I played college basketball with. And then I hang out with Russell almost every couple of days. And, just the greatest guy in the world, just really just a prince of a man. And so I just cherish those memories together. And we had an alumni breakfast and little thing a couple weeks ago, and just to see all the BYU guys that I idolized, then I played with, and then I've called games for, it was pretty special just to be part of that brotherhood. It's just a neat thing.
It's really, I've seen both Randy and Robbie with Roger a couple of times here. I love Roger Reed. When I got into broadcasting and started to do basketball, and he was one of those guys who just took me under his wing and said, let me tell you everything we're going to do in this game. This is the strategy. This is what we're trying to get done. This is what they're going to try to do to us. So he's an unbelievable mentor to me. So I owe Roger a ton for teaching me the things that mattered in college basketball. So I could, and so kind to me.
Let me talk about this first, though. I want to just tell you how awesome you are and how much I respect what you do, because for you to go from sport to sport and speak with authority and speak with knowledge, that's remarkable. I mean, that is hard to do. I would hate, I teased Greg about letting me do a football game here and there.
We might have to bring him to do it. We'll bring
that would be such a disaster. But for you to know what you know about so many different things, maybe you're making it up. You seem like a guy that just makes up stuff and people don't check, right?
You get away a lot doing that.
But you speak with authority. So anyway, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I think
nice.
You're just tremendous at what the job that you do, and your ability to do that's remarkable.
We're really spoiled. So way back when, I got thrown on a basketball game because somebody couldn't do it, and I had played at a high level in high school back in New York, and I said, yeah, I know the game, and I knew it, but not like I needed to know it, and guys like Roger. And on and on, and Steve Cleveland, but not just those guys.
Dave McCann.
Steve Fisher took me under his wing at San Diego State, because I was doing network games for a long time too. Steve Fisher was unbelievably good to me over time. I mean, I could go on about, and Tim Miles was amazing to me when he was at Colorado State. Steve Alford was phenomenal to me. But all these guys, we get to go to shoot around. And then we get to meet with these coaches. And if you do that more than 1,000 times, which I have, right, some of it you're going to start to figure out, right? You have to be an idiot when you're sitting down with those guys and they say, hey, Blaine, let me tell you what we're trying to accomplish out here. This is what we're trying to do. This is why we're running this offense. This is what they're going to try to do to take it away from us. This is what we have to have. This is how we're going to be successful. This is why they're so good. Over and over and over again, more than 1,000 times, then all of a sudden I feel really blessed that I've been around all of those guys that were so patient with me for so many years that I kind of know what they want to get done out on the court now. So it's not a miracle. The miracle is that they were patient with me for a number of years that let me understand the game better.
And you didn't get fired in the first couple of years. That's a miracle.
When I didn't know what I was doing, they let me keep going. And I had the benefit of my instructors were some of the greatest basketball coaches in the history of college basketball, which is pretty cool when you think about it. So that's the formula for that. So I have a lot to be grateful for. You, on the other hand, just know the game. But I was going to ask you about Randy and Robbie. Every time I see those guys, man, those guys have some serious shoe game, dress game. Like, what? Those guys are like, what in the world? I saw Randy the other day. He had some shoes, and I'm not even sure what they were.
The crazy thing is they're from Spanish Park, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, come on. It's crazy. But, yeah, listen, they're two of my favorite people in the world. Randy and I were like brothers in college. And like I said, I got to spend a lot of time in the Reed home. Their sweet mother has some health issues now. It's heartbreaking. But, man, what a great family. Just an amazing family. And I love them. And they've been so successful. And you got to make a lot of money to buy all those shoes.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not sure you can buy the shoes that he had on in the United States. I think you had to import those.
And terrific players. I mean, I don't think people, because it was Roger, it was his kids. It was a hard road for them. But Randy was recruited by North Carolina, went on recruiting visits. I mean, he was a top recruit in the country and was a terrific player. Robbie obviously was great. Went and played at Michigan after BYU. So these guys are amazing players, terrific people. I saw Randy the other night in Vegas, and I just love the Reed family. Can't say enough good things about them. And Roger, listen, Roger had some ups and downs, and maybe wasn't particularly great with kind of the PR side, which you need as a coach, right?
Yeah.
But he was an amazing coach. I mean, those battles with Roger Reed and Rick Majerus was amazing. We'd go there, we'd call out their plays, then we'd go down, they'd call out our plays, and it was these amazing battles over the years. It was so cool. Roger's just an amazing basketball coach.
A few more questions with Mark Durrant here on the Wise Guys. Another one from your brother Devin. Why don't you invite your brother Devin to golf more with you? I will pay.
Yeah,
this is his question. Why don't you take your brother out golfing? What's wrong?
Listen,
what's wrong with you?
He was the president of or in the presidency of the young men in the church, and he's going to spew lies like that. I mean, that's embarrassing.
He's out of that calling now. Now he can speak the truth.
This was after he got released, so he can say whatever he wanted.
My brother Matt and I and other brothers, we love to play golf, and we have begged Devin to come with. He's got this perfect life.
It sounds to me like he has been left out. And
like he came on here and made it sound like I'm the outsider, bro.
Like we're trying to get the family back together.
Here's the problem with Devin, is he's so good at everything. I mean, have you ever met a guy that's better, maybe Blaine, is better at more things than Devin and more successful?
No, Devin is like crazy talented.
He doesn't want to play golf because he's not good at it. And he could get good really quickly, but he doesn't like not being All-American, right? He's Mr. All-American. So
you're saying it's on him.
Listen, Devin, now he moved up to Idaho so he would get out of having to play golf.
Right.
He'll come down. He came down to be on this show. He'll come down and play.
Oh, he used to go up there, Teton Springs. There's some good courses.
We're just trying to bring you guys together.
I would love to play with Devin. Let me just talk about Devin for a second. I mean, what an amazing human being. I mean, just remarkable. I grew up Devin Durrant's little brother. That was my name until I was 24. And I love it. I love being Devin's little brother. Not a better person in the world. Completely pure, has impeccable integrity, incredibly successful, worked hard for everything he's got, basketball or otherwise, has an amazing family. I mean, I just love my brother Devin. I've never felt an ounce of jealousy just because he's just so awesome. And I just want to be like him. And one of the great all-time, I mean, can you think of a smoother, better offensive player? Even Jimmer, he was so good at offense, just pure smoothness, and one of the greats to watch.
He made it look easy, didn't he? Like just around the rim. I mean, it just
in the summer when you come back on the show, if you haven't played golf.
Yeah, we're gonna
then that's going to be a problem. So
All right,
just
we're going,
just do
Devin.
that.
We're going.
I know he's
It's
listening
on
tonight.
It's on the radio. It's on the podcast. So
Yep. Okay. We're gonna see who. Like, if
Speaking
you haven't
of-
played golf with him,
speaking
I'm
golf,
sure
I know probably run out of time, but when I met Dave McCann, he was Mr. Vegas everything, right?
he has some hookups in golf.
He's like the mafia down there. He ran everything in Vegas.
Yeah, this is true.
I remember the first couple.
I was not the mafia, but I know some guys.
I bet you do. I bet you
Hey,
know some
sometimes
guys.
Dave and I go
bet you
down
know
there
some
and we
guys.
have dinner with people, and then we leave, and I'm like, well, they were really nice. Are they in the mafia? And Dave's like, yeah, they're in the mafia.
But Dave, I mean, I was a nobody, and he hooked me up with some golf for a few years. And if you want to be my friend, aside
That's
from
the way
Devin,
in.
you hook me up with some golf. And I remember liking Dave the second I met him, and I'm just talking about great people here, but Dave McCann is just an amazing, amazing man.
Are you
and
just
so
working the
kind.
room? Are you working the room?
Listen.
Because then your wife's next. I don't know what
I
she's going to
got-
say about her.
I don't think we have enough time to say enough good things about her. But listen, what a career! I mean, what a man.
He took me to
seriously.
to play because he had hookups with Walters Golf. Billy Walters somehow was
When
his
he
buddy.
was when he was legit.
Yeah,
Let's
back
make
in the-
sure that's
But Bally High Golf
understood.
Course, like I'd never played a course like that. Dave
Yeah.
takes me out there. Like I need to check out of my hotel room and sleep right here on the tee box because this is the most comfortable plush thing I've ever seen in my life. And he got us out there.
Listen, we can talk about that when the book comes out. I got another question for you. And
Okay.
we have 2 more questions, and Blaine's going to hit you with 5.
Yeah.
And then we're going to get you out of here. We're glad you brought Mary Lee with you tonight so that
There she
can
is.
drive you home safely. It's snowing out.
And she'll call him
that
on
stuff.
anything that was nonsense. She'll call him on it.
So you've announced hundreds of games, if not thousands of games, on the radio.
26 years this year.
26 years this year. Any favorite moments? I think I know one, but I haven't talked to you in advance. But I'm thinking that the TJ Haas bucket at Houston, where he made the shot, and then somebody turned around and hugged you right there at Radio Row.
Yeah, it was so weird because we were on the end, like on the baseline, which was unusual. And there was this opening. I was on the end of the table like this one here, and there was an opening. And in the final play, I just kind of moved myself to see a little bit better. And he hits the shot right in front of me, and he falls down and gets up, and we're like standing face to face like some romantic
You
scene
got
in the
your
movie.
arms up in the air.
I got my,
Yes.
And he just looks at me. I look at him, and we just hug. And
How can you top that moment?
and there was like 30 guys just mob us, and I'm in the middle of this.
Yeah.
I mean, it was.
And you're on the air.
That's my picture on Twitter. Is me, the back of my bald head, and just 30 guys mobbing me. It
How
was so
awesome.
cool.
so was that
cool.
close? Was that a
is
close
that one
guess?
of the best ever?
That's pretty close. I mean, the whole Jimmer experience was cool.
Yeah.
I mean.
Did you call the New Mexico game down at the tournament?
Yes.
See,
yes.
I called that for television. I called the championship game that year too for television. But what's your memory of that New Mexico game? Because I'd never seen anything like it.
I remember that he scored all those points with no free throws or
I think he
one
had
free
one
throw.
attempt.
One free
50
throw.
points with one free throw attempt. Who
And
does that?
It's just remarkable. He was so good. I remember going down to Arizona and crushing those guys with him. I mean, and going to San Diego State when they had Kawhi and some other guys, I think Billy White or someone
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And they threw everybody at him, and they still couldn't stop him. They'd pick him up at half court and double team him, and they still had no hope of stopping the Jimmer.
He'd give up the ball, run off of 4 screens, come back and get the ball and knock it down.
Pretty amazing.
It was a fun
and a
time.
great person too.
Yeah, good stuff.
That's the great thing is all these people we're talking about are just awesome people.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Your brother wants to know where he can get a copy of your book, Over the Wall, The Bean Chronicles. He said, my friends have read it, and I want to read it.
Man.
And where can everyone get
Where
it?
can they get it?
I think if you
it's-
dig
it's
through the DI used
the
book
Bean Green Chronicles, right?
The Bean Green, the Bean Green Chronicles. Listen,
What do I got to Google it? How do I get
you
that?
can get it on Amazon, David, and buy a couple, man. You can afford it.
Amazon.
But buy them for all your 100 grandkids.
He drives a really nice
Put them in
car.
their
8.
Put them in their
So he can afford two
stockings. It's on Amazon. I just you live life, and one of the things I wanted to do is write a book. So I wrote a book, and it's kind of a young adult fiction book. And I think it was pretty cool, and I think about 17 other people thought it was cool, and that's probably good enough. It's hard to.
Mary says
Hard
she
work.
thought it was cool.
She's.
Oh, that makes you an author. So
So
you got that
here's
going
a
for you.
question before we get to the 5. Free throw shooting contest tonight. Like we take you out of here.
Okay.
Devin's got to come down. We meet in the Marriott Center. Turn all the lights on. It's just us. Who wins the free throw shooting contest?
Devin would kill me. I mean, even when I was playing at my top and he was retired, he would kill me. I mean, he's just so much better than me. The thing about Devin is he's super skinny, but he was strong, man. He'd just push you around. It's some of the best players that I played against. The defining characteristic was how strong they were. And you'd look at them and you think, no, they're not that strong. Andy Toulson was super strong. Grant Hill pushed me around like a rag doll. I couldn't believe it. And he's just kind of a skinny guy. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I forget what we were talking about with Devin.
Free
but
throw shooting. You think he would? We asked Tyler Hawes, free throw shooting contest with him and Jimmer, and Tyler was like, "Yeah, I'd get Jimmer on free throws." but think about it. Tyler probably would get him on free throws.
He's the one guy maybe that could get him.
And Tyler explained to us that from 5th grade on, he shot 100 free throws a day from 5th grade on. And then he got to where he was making 95 out of 100 every time or more. And then he had one day when he was going, so he just kept going. He made 157 straight. And we're going, okay, we're going to take you in a free throw shooting contest with Jimmer. And then he ended with, yeah, but Jimmer would kill me on a 3-point shooting contest.
All right, let's get to five. Let's get to five questions. David Almodovar is up next, and he does not like to wait. So let's jump right to five questions.
Yes, let's start with
get on David's
your
bad side.
favorite sports movie.
He'll be sitting in the rafters instead of down in the good seats. You got to stay in his good
favorite sports movie.
That's tough. I mean, I mentioned The Natural earlier, Field of Dreams, Hoosiers. I mean, I'll pick one from every sport. Is that what?
No, you got to pick one. What's the best of all those?
I think The Natural. I'm going to go with The Natural. That just speaks to me.
That's a good one. Right. Favorite singer or band?
Cake.
Wow, I don't even know who Cake is. I pride myself that I've known every band ever mentioned on this show.
I Will Survive. The cover of I Will Survive.
That's Cake.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go listen to him.
Long Jacket.
Okay, favorite breakfast cereal?
Crunch Berries.
Thank goodness.
I used to ask Santa for a box of Captain Crunch.
Do you ever eat all of the Captain Crunches and leave like 4 bites of nothing but the Crunch Berries at the end?
Absolutely. How do you eat any other way? You don't eat it any other way. That would be wrong.
This is a man after my heart. He likes regular Captain Crunch. I'm like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, I had it this morning.
So, and anybody anybody that comes on here and does a healthy cereal,
I like all Crunch Berries.
We just make
just
fun
straight
of
Crunch Berries.
Crazy.
Yeah.
No Captain, just all berries.
Like, oops, we forgot the Crunch.
All right. Your favorite BYU moment is during your time, not broadcasting, your favorite BYU moment when you were there.
Robbie Reed hitting the 3 to beat Utah at the Huntsman Center.
Yes.
No question. That was a celebration that will never be forgotten.
I love that one. Okay, your favorite thing about your older brother, Devin?
I think you kind of mentioned it a moment ago.
I got to keep talking about Devin?
Just for a few more seconds.
I told you growing up, Devin's little brother.
What's your favorite thing about him?
He's just good, man. Can you say anything better about a person just saying they're just good? He's just good all the way through. Just good. He's good.
That's good. That's good. That's better than bad.
I'd second that about Devin.
He doesn't have any bad, though. You think you have a little? Maybe he's got something.
He tried to steal Brenda from me once, but
and Marie Osmond, by the way, on this show.
To college, Devin. I don't know.
We were at training table, and he said, "Who's that girl with you?"
Listen.
Are you dating her? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, oh, okay, I'll back off then.
Listen, Marie sat right here on this show and said Devin was a forward on the basketball team, and he was forward on our dates.
Wow.
And then when we asked him about that, of course, his wife was right here. He just moved on to the next thing.
Yeah, he said plausible deniability.
You could never say that about me because
he said Marie makes up stuff.
I only had eyes for Marilee.
Yeah, you're a wise man. As a connoisseur of all things interesting, our last question for you: What will you remember the most from the legendary BYU alum and author of the air raid offense, Mike Leach, who passed away?
Oh man, that breaks my heart, man. You just every time you saw a clip for him, you're just gonna laugh. Yeah. And just be entertained. And the thing about him, and what's so rare in the world, Dave, he is a complete and utter original.
Oh,
just nothing like him, and that's so rare. And you think about guys that are just, originals, and I think about Tony Ingle, who was my coach and passed away from COVID, and too young, just like Mike Leach, and he was an original. And just, those guys. They salt the earth. The people that are that original, and to be that original, Blaine, you just have to be fearless, don't you? And just not care. You're just so true to yourself, and just, that's just heartbreaking to think we're not going to get 20, 30, 40 more years of Mike Leach. I can't even contemplate that. It's terrible.
It is, and it adds. Every day things happen to give us perspective, and this is happening at age 61. which should make us all want to live our best days right now and be grateful for as many of them as we get.
That's why I'm here, man.
Sure.
This is my best day being with you guys.
The great Mark Durrant. Thanks for bringing your wife. Happy holidays, your family. We'll see you Thursday night.
Be safe out there in this crazy snow.
Man,
I'm wearing this is my snow shirt.
I got to go down that hill. Whose home is this? I don't even know.
Well, it's an undisclosed location.
I got to go down that freaking hill, man.
We shouldn't even. People don't even know it's on a hill.
As far as we know,
security reasons, we don't tell people where we are.
Listen, just go slow and you'll make it. And if that's super slick, then try this other way. Go down back behind the temple. Okay. That's the other way.
Yeah, you go that
That's
way.
my life philosophy.
Dave, you're like saying way too much about
Well, I know, but I want him to live.
Okay.
I want you to live. Yeah. Thanks for coming.
You've always been
house on a hill.
You've been more concerned about me than Blaine, who just
that's probably true.
That's
probably true.
You were a BYU quarterback, man. That's amazing. That's like the most beloved position in all of Mormondom except for the prophet. And you are one of them. Holy smokes.